Oh, there it is. All right, guys. So as some of you know, right, if you've been following, I don't know what's this doing. I guess I have to do it this way. That I've been doing some gardening, and this is just some of the harvest. We've had a few more of these tomatoes come in that we've enjoyed, and yeah, they're small, but they're small. But this is the eggplant, right? And here's something. I just want to do an update with the garden, and I want to talk about how this applies to what I'm talking about today. So come out here. Here's the garden. This is a garden update, right? Our container garden. So this is just a rose bush. This rose bush has been hanging in. I forget how long ago I planted this one and one across from my wife years ago, and it's been hanging in, been taken care of. But this right here is the cherry tomato plant, right? This is one, our cherry tomatoes, and this is the one we got those awesome tomatoes off of, and you know, we just been coming out and taking care of it, and there's a bunch of tomatoes on it, a whole bunch of tomatoes. I don't know if you can see them, but we got a whole bunch of tomatoes coming in here, right? And again, if you guys who heard me say something earlier or saw the post earlier about my garden, I had said something about late harvest, and sometimes when we do, or late planting, and sometimes when we do late planting, you know, we're not sure if there's going to be any harvest, and so far, God has been faithful about showing this. This is the red pepper plant. It hasn't done much more than just giving us blooms here, right? And so just hanging in, as you can see, I just got done watering these guys. This is our I think this is called a Big Ben or Big Beef tomato plant. And for a long time, the only thing I saw, let me see if we can get to it, is, let's see, here we go. There's two tomatoes here. Here's one. Here's another one. But this morning when I was showing my wife what God has been doing with our little garden here, right, what I noticed, let me see if we can find him again. Oh, where'd you go? Oh, there's some more tomatoes. Those are ones I just showed you. Where'd you go? Oh, there's some more tomatoes right here. There's some more right there. I don't know, can you see them? Let's see. There they go. There's another one down here. And this one's taken a little bit, it's been taking a little bit to give us some harvest, right? Then over here, this is our squash. And yesterday, as I was watering, I noticed we had a couple of squash. So that's awesome. That's been taking a little while to come through. This is it's in Mexico. If you look at what we plant, right? So it has a sorry guys, I know what's going on here. I've been praying and waiting for this to give us some fruit, and it's been doing a lot of these blooms, so hopefully with these blooms we'll start seeing something, right? And be patient with me, guys. I know there's a couple of you watching, you wonder what this has to do with what I'm talking about, but let me show you this. Look at this pepper. We got a cucumber coming through. And then here's our pumpkin plant. Now our pumpkin plant, we don't have seen any pumpkin yet, but if you notice, the vine for the pumpkin is growing more and more and more. So that's doing some awesome. This is the other rose plant. Now let me share with you what this has to do with what I'm trying to share with about tending your gardens. And it's not necessarily just talking about taking care of your gardens like your vegetable gardens or your rose gardens or whatever. You know, this really has to do, part of it is that. But here's an application that as I was thinking about this and praying about this, right, I was looking at what God has been doing here. There in our life, right, we have relationships, we have marriages, we have friends, we have kids that in a sense are like gardens for us, right? And if we're not tending to them, like I could have a long time given up on this tomato plant, right? Because for a long time it wasn't producing anything, but I just continued to water it, right? Continue to care for it. Continue to take any bugs, just like I did with the squash plants. and I could have given up on it, right? But it started producing a harvest. Now, it's the same thing with our relationships, right? If we don't take time to water, to care for them, to take care of the things, like for an example, one of the things that I shared in the previous video is this cucumber plant can be kind of aggressive, right? And I had to go from this pepper plant and off of the pumpkin plant. And when I noticed when I came back home from Mexico that this cucumber plant was starting to take over the pepper plant, right? And if we don't take care of things like that, right, in our relationships, it can smother out things, smother out other relationships. So we have to be careful. We have to be careful in choosing who we have relationships with and how we handle our relationships, right? Because the first relationship we need to have is with Christ, right? And when we have when our relationship with Christ then our relationship with others will do well. So a lot of this has to do with, not just tending vegetable gardens, but it also has to do with tending our relationships in our lives. And again, starting with making sure our relationship with Christ is being tended to, right? Are you spending time with him in the Word? Are you spending time with him in prayer? Right? Are you doing the things that in your lives, like, are you taking care of those things that can smother out your time with him, that can be distractions? Right? Because if we're not taking those times to tend our garden, so to speak, with Christ especially, right, it can smother us out, right? This pepper plant right here, I'm sure could have done better if it was separate from the cucumbers, so the cucumbers didn't choke it out, right? But still taking care of it. But it's like things in life. It can choke out our time with Christ if we allow it. And we need to develop that relationship first. And then when we develop that relationship with Christ, right, then we can tend to relationships. Sometimes we have relationships in our lives, right? We just feel led that we need to take care of them. And if you like this tomato plant for a long time, it wasn't producing anything, but we just kept watering it. And finally it produced some fruit, right? It wasn't a dead plant, although yes, there's some of the leaves on the bottom died, but it wasn't a dead plant because it was still being vibrant, right? So there's some relationships in our lives that sometimes it seems like there's nothing fruitful coming, but they're not dead relationships, but we got to continue to water them. And when we continue to invest in those relationships that are not dead, they're not necessarily relationships that are keeping us away from focusing on the Lord, and they're not relationships that are bad or I don't know. I'm trying to think of a way to put it, but they're basically not relationships that are unhealthy, right? But they are relationships that we're being prompted to take care of. And so when we water them, right, and when we take care of those relationships, we spend time with Christ, and we water relationships, friendships, in our marriage. Seeing a lot of posts, and I've been talking to a lot of people that have been going through struggles in their marriages, right? And a common thing that's going on when I talk to them is that it's not so much that like of a marriage ending, it's that they're not spending time in investing into their marriages. They're not pouring water, so to speak. They're not spending time in the Word. They're not praying. They're not taking time to communicate. They're not taking time to with going out on dates, right? Lifting each other up, right? Listening to each other, talking, right? Talking is not just talking. It's also listening. We need to spend more time listening to each other and helping each other to grow, to encourage each other, to hear our concerns, our cares, right? You know, one of the biggest reasons for any relationship to, especially marriages, to end is because poor communication, right? Think about that, right? That even applies on our relationship with Christ. Sometimes we feel like we don't hear from him. Sometimes we feel like we don't get answers from him, right? Because we're not spending time in listening. We're not talking, but we're not doing enough time listening. So this is what I want to bring out of this, guys. We spent time taking care of our garden, right? And we're starting to see fruits. there's a couple of plants that we would love to see more. We'd like to see more fruit off of, or to see any fruit off. But we're still going to take care of them because we never know. Even just plants, even if it doesn't produce any fruit, so to speak, just spending time, it's giving us time to learn from this, so that next time. It's the same thing with our relationships. We need to spend time in our relationships and water them, right? When we start seeing fruits, and we'll start seeing a lot of blessings, right? And we'll learn from each other. We glean from each other. So with that, guys, I hope this is helpful. I know that I started off by showing you an update on the garden, but it really applies to our relationships too. We need to spend time in tending our gardens so that we can help others to grow, and also to see when we need to start removing some of those relationships out of our lives that need to be removed. But again, first thing you need to start with is your relationship with Christ. I pray you guys all have a blessed day, and I pray that you continue to seek him and pray and been in your word. God bless you guys.